In sexual reproduction, there's a transfer of genetic material between a male and female part of the flower, either within the same flower or within different flowers of the same species. And what happens is there's pollen produced by the anther, which is the male part of the flower, and the anther is held up by a filament. And there's different types of pollination that can occur. There's either wind pollination, where the pollen that's produced is carried by the wind to another flower, or insect pollination, when an insect arrives and collects nectar from the nectary at the base of the flower, and in the process of getting down there, some pollen is rubbed off onto its body from the anther, so that when it visits another flower, some of that pollen will land on the female part of the flower, which is the carpel, and the top part of that, the stigma. When pollen lands on the top of that, a pollen tube will deliver the genetic material of the pollen down to the ovules, which are in this ovary at the base of the flower. And when those ovules are fertilized by the pollen, and there's a transfer of genetic information from the pollen to the ovules, that results in the sexual fertilization, so the mixture of genetic material that creates unique new individuals within that same species. And they will produce seeds. So the seeds that develop will either burst open, so a plant can distribute its seeds by exploding open and catapulting seeds around itself, or it can produce fine feathery tendrils that will capture the wind and spread it that way, or that ovary, that base of the flower, can swell up and produce some sort of tasty fruit that will attract some animal to come and eat that fruit and distribute the seeds away from the parent plant with a nice package of manure to help fertilize the ground in which it's deposited. So that's the process of sexual fertilization, and the benefits of sexual fertilization is that through that process you're getting a unique set of traits developed within the seeds. So the baby plants that grow from the seeds produced will have different traits to the parents, just as an offspring of an animal, the offspring are different in features and characteristics from their parents. And some of those traits may be of advantage to that offspring, so they may have some behavioural characteristic or some physiological, structural or ability that will enable it to survive within its environment or compete more effectively with other species that are the same, or avoid predation or capture food more effectively. Any of those traits that allow it to reproduce more successfully and pass on its own traits to its own offspring will be said to have given it a competitive advantage, and those traits will be passed on to successive generations in a process that we refer to as evolution. So in an agricultural context, the benefits of that sexual reproduction is that new types of individuals are being produced, and some of those individuals may be better adapted to a particular site, so they may have a certain resistance to some of the pests or fungal diseases that are at that site. They may have better ability to survive in those particular soil conditions. They may have better resistance against the particular pests or herbivores that are in that region, or they may have more ability to survive climatic changes within that region or climatic extremes than others in their offspring. So it's only through producing a range of new baby plants through sexual reproduction that you can, as an agriculturalist, select those individuals that have the best traits for survival and productivity within your particular conditions, and therefore produce new cultivars of plants that are particularly well suited to the conditions at your site. And it's not done very frequently. Most people will just buy plants from a garden centre, and those particular plants don't have a set of characteristics that give it any particular good adaptations to that particular site. So it's far better if you want to produce really resilient, robust, adaptable plants, to grow them from seed at that particular site and select the individuals that are performing the best and are most resilient to the particular conditions that you have at your site. And one technique that is used to refer to that is called stun, which is sheer, total and utter neglect, where you can select, say, maybe a fruit tree or a nut tree, and you can grow it from seed, and you can plant it out from seed at the site that you want it to grow. And as they all come up, you only the toughest will survive the conditions without any assistance from people to nurture and grow them. So only the toughest will survive, and then you can make your selection from those toughest ones, which one also produce the best tasting fruit or have the best growth characteristics that will favour productivity, and you can work with those, or you can graft on top of those as the basis of your production.